8 News is honoring Black history, and today's story focuses on the first Black war correspondent in the United States.
Thomas Morris Chester reported on the front lines of the Civil War right here in Richmond, and 8 News reporter Allison Williams has his story and the park ranger who's taken on the role of portraying him.
Avery Lentz got his start as a park guide back in 2013 in Gettysburg, hopping from park to park until he landed at Fort Harrison in Henrico 9 months ago. Lentz then learned about the man whose life he would soon portray, Thomas Morris Chester.
I knew nothing. I had to really kind of start from scratch.
Chester worked for the Philadelphia Press, the paper's only Black reporter and the nation's first Black war correspondent.
I read his memoirs, I read kind of his little biography, his correspondence itself from some of the battles that he witnessed.
Embedded with the Army of the James in 1864, Chester's descriptions of battle were as close to what soldiers saw as possible.
Because unlike a lot of other correspondents, he's with these men in the trenches. He's with them on a daily basis, as shells are falling, as, snipers are taking pot shots and whatnot. He's asking them how their days are going. And then of course, he's there for the election.
And it was in Chester's book, Black Civil War Correspondence, that park rangers discovered a previously overlooked story Chester reported from Election Day, 1864, November 8th, Abraham Lincoln versus George McClellan. Because of an Ohio law allowing absentee soldier voting, 194 soldiers among the Army of the James were able to cast their ballots right on the Fort Harrison battlefield. Chester was one of the only eyewitnesses of the day, documenting every single vote soldiers cast for Lincoln to serve a second term as president. The park commemorated the 160th anniversary of that vote in November, debuting Lentz's role as Chester.
Because I believe there would never be a time where blacks would have the same rights and equality as white folk here in this country. You can't necessarily nail down exactly every minute detail, but you can have a little more flexibility in creating that character.
Lentz prepped for 4 months, even trying to nail down Chester's voice. He gathered clues in Chester's education level and English studies. Plus, Lentz banked on the fact that they're both from central Pennsylvania.
This eloquence that he had with his voice was probably very adamant. And here, right in the gates of Richmond, outside the Confederate capital, these men were fighting and dying and succeeding eventually for those ideals.
He answered questions as Chester for the guests in an interactive portion of the tour.
How for you does it feel to play him?
It is an honor. It really is. Just hands down, to be able to step into his shoes, to tell his story. I like to think that in a way he's here, and not just him, but the men that he covered, the men that whose story he told.
After the Union won the war in 1865, Chester traveled around Europe. Eventually, he settled in Louisiana, but passed away in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania in 1892 at the age of 58, forever a historic part of America's story. In Henrico, Allison Williams, 8 News.
Wow. I mean, obviously Chester contributed so much, but a legacy in our own field.
And then when you are portraying that person, you're not only learning so much about who they were, but also the honor of being able to represent them in modern times.
Yeah.
What a story.
And he had no idea he was going to do that when he came here to Richmond.
Right.